Here, and today we are doing a video on what tanks to learn right now. So we're looking at Overwatch, we're thinking, hey, what tanks could we learn right now? What tanks make sense to play, to learn? What's going to make sense like that? And what we're going to see here is, yes, obviously you can learn whatever tank is interesting to you, whatever tank you feel like you want to add to your pool. That's always something that you have the option to do. You can absolutely just go, hey, I want to go ahead and play this hero because it calls to me, because it looks interesting, because it seems like a fun playstyle. Those are all perfectly valid reasons, but for those that are looking for what's going to be, more meta right now, or even beyond just being what's more meta right now, maybe what's going to prepare them for Overwatch 2, they want to think at it from that view, or what's going to be the easiest to learn right now, not like what's the easiest tank to play, but what's going to be easier to learn right now. The truth is, it is easier and more effective to learn heroes while they're meta, while they're sort of being played in their somewhat optimal situations, because while you can absolutely one-trick a hero even while it's not meta, and learn the hero and play that hero pretty well, you're going to find that you're going to get more good situations where you're getting to play the hero towards the way that you want to play it, towards the situations that you're actually in its meta, which is, when you'd want to play it in the future once you're already good at it. You're going to have more useful experience to transfer. You absolutely want some experience playing your hero against things that it's not good at, into bad situations. So maybe playing Sigma into Brawl heroes, maybe playing Reinhardt into Erisa when he doesn't have a Lucio. You want some practice with those things, but you're going to get more good experience. You're going to learn a hero a bit faster, usually by playing it when it's meta. If you've already got the hero, makes sense, play your heroes when you want to play. But let's get into it. And what are the factors that lead to deciding, I can of course tell you, and I will be telling you which heroes I would recommend you learn right now in the tank category, but what factors go into that? Well, the first factor that we're going to look at is going to be, hey, we look at this and go, well, what is getting played right now? In an organized play, is there something that's clearly the meta? Well, we've got some collegiate going on right now. We don't have AL going on right now. We don't have amazing answers for that in terms of, where can we look to really get the, oh, this is the meta? But what we do know is that mostly the meta has been somewhat flexible. We've seen a fair amount of Zen Ball most recently. We're seeing more poke on ladder. Brawl absolutely comes out on its maps. You see some Monkey Anna type stuff or some Monkey Moira, Monkey Rush type stuff. You see some of all of it. So what is more the meta there? Well, you might lean towards that Zen Ball on ladder, or on organized play, but ladder we can actually just sort of go see. What is being played at the top? And here we go, and we can see, well, if we look at the top 500, let's just use that as an example. We'll look at the top 20 of them. We see a ton of Sigma. We see a little bit of Zarya. We see quite a bit of Hog. We see a single Erisa there. We see a single Reinhardt there. Okay, some Diva. There's always some Diva. And then we don't just want to look at the top 10, we want a bigger sample size than that. We'll go to top 20. We again see lots of Sigma, some Diva, but those are all off tanks. Don't we need a main tank? What's going on? It can't just be all Sigma and Diva. And maybe these are, Booger Snout. That's an off tank player. Okay, that makes sense, sure. Cucumber, again, that's an off-tank player, so it makes sense that we see these. What about the main tanks to go with that? Because there's off-and main tanks, right? And we see some Wrecking Ball, some Erisa. Again, there's a lot more Hog than we might be expecting. What's going on here? Okay, so we've got that, and then you might be going, based on this, we see that the most common is probably looking to be, let me get out my Epic Pen. The most common is probably looking to be Sigma. The second most common is probably looking like either it's maybe Diva, maybe Roadhog here, but the main tanks feel light. Is it just a bad time to play main tanks? The top main tank, in terms of the one highest on the ladder here, would be Super's Reinhardt, but that kind of looks like an outlier. That just looks like Super is a Rein player. Super is choosing to practice his Rein. We want to be careful not to overweigh any outliers where a professional player is going, hey, I'm treating the ladder like the gym. I'm just working on a specific hero. And that's probably exact, or, just going, hey, I'm going to be entertaining as a streamer. Whatever may be going on there. So we want to discount that. We see a few Erisas, we see a Wrecking Ball. But what we're actually seeing is just a lot of off tank. Like, even some of these players who would be more main tank players are playing quite a bit of Sigma, that sort of thing. So that's telling us, and I can just tell you that poke has gotten a bit more popular on the ladder. We're probably not seeing as much ball comp in ladder as we are in organized play right now. So ladder's gotten a little funky, but ladder is the meta that you'll be playing in, and it is a little bit more poke heavy. So maybe we're looking towards our poke tanks, towards our Sigmas, our Roadhogs, our Erisas, maybe D.Va and Zarya, that sort of thing. But then you might be going, okay, but that's only top 500. Temporal, most of the player base isn't in top 500. They're down in the middle ranks, the golds, the plats, the silvers, and they always want Reinhardt. That's what they call for there. Yes, there is an adjustment to the ladder in terms of the player base is going to always play a little more brawl heavy, period, than the top of the ladder does. And B, especially in those middle and lower ranks, you're going to see a bias towards Reinhardt. That doesn't necessarily mean Reinhardt is particularly good or particularly amazing for climbing with, but you are going to see some level of bias towards brawl because there is a desire to play this game in this, hey, let's bunch up, group together, and then maybe press W. At least you hope press W at the other team. And that's not amazing, but that is a bias that exists, and that is sort of its own meta that forms. So to some level, we might factor that into our considerations of, well, which heroes to learn right now. And if you don't have a Reinhardt on your team, is your team going to tilt? Can you get some other sort of shield in there? Will a Sigma cause them to not tilt while actually giving you access to a better hero? Will an Erisa cause them to not tilt while actually getting you access to a better hero? That's part of the meta of some of those lower ranks there. And then we lastly want to think about Overwatch 2, and how does this all work in here where, hey, it's Overwatch 2. Someone like Erisa is probably going to have a pretty big redesign, so maybe it doesn't make as much sense to learn her right now. And then, are we going to favor highly mobile tanks? Are we going to favor tanks more like Reinhardt? What's going to be more meta in Overwatch 2? Ultimately, that's all speculation at this point, but it's hard to go wrong with mobility, especially early in games when they're fresher, when they're newer. Mobility is generally a pretty safe bet, especially with less people on the board when, the old maps will still be in rotation. Same size map, less people. The ability to move between lanes faster. Hard to undersell that. Probably a pretty safe bet. So if we sort of factor all of that together, and remember, some of you tank players are going, hey, maybe you're a main tank player, maybe you're an off tank player. You need to just be a tank player in Overwatch 2. So you might want to start adding to your pool now. Well, what can you do? And if we look here, here's our tank pool. Which hero makes the most sense to learn? We saw sort of what's being played at the top. We've talked about the organized play, professional, how that might see a little bit more ball than we're seeing in the top 20. We're thinking about Overwatch 2. We're thinking about expanding hero pools in general. For our tank players, since you've now got to do them all as a tank player, what does that mean? Well, we're in a bit of a poke meta on the ladder. Even in lower level play, poke still does pretty good. Does much better than dive does, for example, in lower level play. From an organized team standpoint anyway. Not from an organized team. From your team hitting any level of organization, even on random ladder. So who would be the top pick to learn? Well, it's going to be Sigma. Sigma's definitely an off tank. Sigma would potentially see meaningful reworks, like Erisa is very likely to see meaningful reworks for Overwatch 2. They're clearly a little bit afraid of this barrier system. You saw Erisa disabled for the Overwatch 2 demos that we got to see, things like that. Similar situation with Sigma, but ultimately, Sigma is a good tank. He's good at poke. He's not as evergreen as D.Va, but he's probably the next most evergreen tank behind D.Va. Like, D.Va is the off tank that used to always see play, only really got forced out of the meta in a couple very specific situations, and most of the time that was for D.Va, who can also sort of fill D.Va's anti-ultimate, solve fight, solve off angles role. Roadhog might solve an enemy ultimate by hooking them. D.Va can solve it by DMing them, and she can use her DM in increments. Sigma can deploy a shield, pull it back. Deploy a shield, pull it back. He can rock stuff to cancel it. He can use his shift to eat a male, things like that. He splits up. He has his ability to deny things incremented between 3 different abilities. 2 of those abilities are moderately sized cooldowns, yes, but one of those can flick on and off, and he still has 3 different different ways that they're distributed. So using his rock, he can still potentially block a high noon. Using his shift, his shift is on cooldown. Okay, now he can't block a blizzard, but he can still potentially block a tack visor, or still potentially blow out a widow who has infosights up, that sort of thing. So he's been pretty decent competition to D.Va. He's a good hero to know. Like, D.Va, I would say, is the most evergreen of the tanks, but Sigma's been a good hero to know, and this isn't the best meta to learn D.Va. It's okay. It's an okay meta to learn D.Va, but this definitely is not the best meta. If you're looking for poke heroes, because that's going to be the easiest thing to learn right now, Sigma is going to be your top tier choice. So then, what to go with Sigma? Well, if we look at what's being played, the truth is it's Roadhog. You're seeing a lot of Sigma Roadhog. You're seeing a lot of, hey, we're playing double poke, double off tank. There's not as much difference between a poke off tank and a poke main tank. There's still some, but you're seeing that, so that would be the thing. But the thing is, Roadhog isn't actually a very good hero. He's really not. Unless you just buff his numbers to make him insane, he's really not terribly good. That's why if you're watching this when this video is going live, you're seeing, hey, we talked about this. We have the experimental where they've tried to very much change how he works, make him sit with the group, have his breather, heal him based on the number of people around, heal people near him. They're trying to do those sorts of things because, hey, they want him to function differently because his current design doesn't really work that great. He's ultimately competing with Sigma or D.Va for a spot, and he just does not do a very good job of that. Can be a better ladder pick than organized play pick, but you do, if you're playing Overwatch, want to think about the game in a way of, hey, what's going to be useful for maybe getting on a team later? Because getting on a team, organized play is the most fun way to play Overwatch, and you want to build your pool with the thought that you could go do that in the future, even if you don't currently have any intention to, because it leaves your options open to have fun. Also, is Roadhog going to be your tank in Overwatch 2 with his current design, single tank? Very unlikely. I'd say that is very unlikely. Could he after a significant rework? Maybe, but if he has a significant rework, he's probably not going to be, your practice on him now probably isn't going to have the most carryover effect. Is that a fair criticism of Sigma as well? To a degree, yes, but Sigma is A, better right now, B, more flexible right now, C, probably needs less of a rework to be viable in Overwatch 2 with how they're doing it. But ultimately, we will see. So it's not going to be Roadhog next. I'm going to actually skip a tier for Roadhog. And in our next tier, I'm going to go ahead and put probably Wrecking Ball. Probably Wrecking Ball here. Wrecking Ball is seeing more play in organized play than on ladder. Wrecking Ball is fun hero, lots of fun. You can take over games with Wrecking Ball. You can really feel like you're making a difference. He's very flexible in what he can do. He can enable poke comps. He can be part of dive comps. Wrecking Ball works pretty well. You're not seeing a ton of him when we look through this top 20 here. We see a Wrecking Ball there. We see a couple Wrecking Balls on this second page here. And again, more in that organized play than in that ladder play, but still very much doable in that ladder play. And you'd actually see a bit more of him if you went lower on the ladder than the top 20 there. So this would be another good one, and I think it's likely to be a good hero to know for Overwatch 2, because this mobility, the extreme mobility, the chance to change lanes like that, you might be thinking, oh, but you can't adequately protect your team. Well, some of that is going to be going away, and Wrecking Ball just protects his team differently. Wrecking Ball protects his team by drawing attention away from his team when his team is trying to engage, when his team is trying to rotate. It's just different in much the same way that Winston is just different. Speaking of which, Winston didn't make it onto our list. My bad. Okay. So that's Wrecking Ball. And then the other one that I'd recommend would be Erisa in sort of this next tier here. And Erisa is likely to have a significant redesign or a moderate redesign. So perhaps this won't carry the best into Overwatch 2, but you can learn her right now. She's better than Roadhog. Much of the reason you're seeing an overrepresentation of Roadhog in the ladder and the tier list as we look there is people just don't like playing Erisa. But if you can stand playing Erisa, Erisa Sigma is better than Sigma Roadhog. Erisa Sigma is really, really powerful. Erisa Sigma is the real double shield comp, and you can win a lot of games with double shield. In fact, it's something that, people will swap into when they're losing. If they really are trying to win, if they're really trying to push those top ranks and really trying to do things, that's a very strong thing. So if you don't get bored playing Erisa, or you feel like you might not get bored playing Erisa, this is a good time to learn her. Poke is, pretty meta, gonna work pretty well. And she's also one of those heroes that your team probably isn't gonna complain if you're in those middle ranks, those lower ranks about, we don't have a Reinhardt, we need a Reinhardt. They're less likely to complain. Orisa's sort of like their second choice behind Reinhardt. They prefer the Reinhardt, even though Reinhardt's worse as a hero right now and is not helping them win the game, but he's helping them win the game through not tilting. Erisa will be almost as good for causing them to not tilt, but you'll be able to potentially do a bit more there, be on a better hero right now. Okay, I'll catch up with you guys in chat in just another minute or two there. Okay, so that's sort of what I'd put as our second tier here that I'm pretty good with. So then we move into our third tier, and I'm going to put Roadhog here. You're going to probably want to learn to play Roadhog at some point if you don't already have him in your pool. This is one of the better times to learn him because you're not going to have as many teammates upset to have a Roadhog on their team. Roadhog plus Erisa or Roadhog plus Sigma are both okay comps. This is a pretty decent time to learn him. He sort of needs the poke meta to be learned in. Obviously, people aren't taking the ladder quite as seriously this season, and most people sort of know that. This is a pretty decent time to learn Roadhog, and Roadhog's also a good hero to have in your kit for, oh, our team is just not cooperating whatsoever at all. Let me try and carry this game back. Well, Wrecking Ball's a good hero for that, but Roadhog is also a good hero for that. Everyone's just going to do their own thing here. Decent time to learn him. Can't go wrong there. We're definitely seeing play out of him. Next hero I'd put up here is D.Va. D.Va is evergreen. D.Va is always good. When we're looking at D.Va, we really get to go, hey, we like D.Va. D.Va's fantastic. We would probably expect that D.Va will find a way to be good in Overwatch 2. She might not, but they'll probably do something for her. She's spent the most time of any of the tanks in the game as being meta, and therefore always a safe bet. You can almost always play an okay game with D.Va. D.Va Erisa, that's an okay comp. D.Va Reinhardt, that's an okay comp. D.Va Winston, that's an okay comp. D.Va pairs with really any of the main tanks. D.Va Ball, that's an okay comp. D.Va pairs with any of the main tanks. She really is that good. She's not as good at pairing up with the poke tanks. D.Va Sigma, not great. D.Va Roadhog, not great. D.Va Zarya, it hurts my soul. But hey, she ultimately does have quite a bit of flexibility to her, and having her in your pool, for example, if you in Overwatch 1 were a main tank player, but also had D.Va in your pool to fill for when you landed in a game with another main tank player, you would be golden, just as an example. So really can't go wrong with learning D.Va, even though it's not the best time to learn her. Behind that, we're going to go into our next tier, and I'll list these two together. Zarya and Winston. If we went over and looked at Korea, looked at their top 500 leaderboards, looked at what they play more double bubble than the West does. That's not really because double bubble is secretly actually the best comp and Korea is being more serious about the meta. That's just sort of when they decided that they wanted to stop moving forward with the meta, and that was what they wanted to play. I'm serious. That happened. Yeah. Double bubble itself, if you're running Winston plus Zarya, is pretty okay right now. That's usable in organized play, absolutely. That's not like in any way a throw. It's not really a throw on ladder if your Zarya and Winston have some degree of synergy as a duo pick. Like, a duo, these people actually queued up together. It's quite strong. It's a fair bit weaker if the Winston doesn't trust the Zarya or the Zarya doesn't trust the Winston, that sort of thing. To get them energy, to keep the energy, to give them that bubble on the way in. So it struggles a little bit. And Zarya does okay poke. Like, Zarya does better poke than D.Va does, for example. So Zarya Hog, yes, there's ways to make that work. Zarya Sigma is not very good. Zarya Erisa is even worse. But Zarya can do some okay poke. Certainly better poke than D.Va or Winston can do. She can look at that and go, hey, you could do this. You'd really rather if someone was playing Zarya that they were instead with one of the other poke tanks that they were instead on literally any of the other poke tanks to pair with you if you're playing a poke setup. And so you look at that and go, she's not great, but ultimately things could be worse. Zarya works much better with Winston or Reinhardt. Doesn't work that great with Ball, but those aren't great heroes right now. Winston, again, Winston can work okay. He can work sort of like a budget worst Ball to shoo people into line of sight for your poke heroes to hit. He can do some level of, hey, let me block out a poke hero like a budget diva to not let them get value while my team tries to win. Can do okay on ladder right now. And then Reinhardt is your worst option. I know. Even with the middle and lower parts of the ladder existing, where people are like, no, you get the Reinhardt buff, you get your team not tilting buff. Even with that in play, not going to be the best hero to play right now. Literally better off going, hey, we still have a shield, we have a Sigma. Hey, we still have a shield, we have an Erisa. Literally better off with doing that. Just because when there's a lot of poke, Reinhardt doesn't typically do terribly well. Reinhardt does not like it, especially if he's in those lower ranks where the team sort of gets the mental buff of having him, because in those ranks, you're also going to find your off tank, your DPS aren't clearing off angles for you, which is making it very hard to push, especially into heavy poke comps with angles. He's not going to have a particularly good time. So if you're looking for, hey, who could I learn right now that maybe gives us some flexibility into Overwatch 2, that maybe, is meta, so it's a bit easier to learn them, that, advances your hero pool for organized play? This would sort of be the tier list that I would recommend for, hey, which hero to go learn. Again, any of these heroes could be one-tricked into GM. It's doable. It's been done on all of these heroes. If you go, hey, I really, really, really just want to play Zarya right now, have at it. I'm not going to stop you. But if you want I want to do this in a somewhat more intelligent way, somewhat more efficient way, I'd really be looking into these top 2 tiers here, little bit into this 3rd tier for which hero might you try to add to your pool right now. So if people have questions, go ahead and throw them up in chat. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do drop a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. If you'd like to get coaching yourself, you can join my Discord in the description below, see what rates look like, and all that good stuff. Temporal Zero Pool. 1, button to control lights. Yeah? 2, button to control door. That would be nice. 3, camera that shows where everything is. 4, music box. One to keep the puppet happy. I see. The ultimate of the mask. Okay, so you guys are trying to get me to play Friday Night at Freddy's. I'll get to it. I will. Zarya Diva and Hogball? No, thank you. Zarya Diva is like the worst tank combination that is terrible. They have anti-synergy. Hogball isn't the worst thing in the world. It's really not. Hog plus Erisa is better. Ball plus Sigma is better. But Hog Ball is not the worst thing in the world. You can pile drive people into hooks. He can roll through people to knock them out. Ball works with poke heroes, and Hog is ultimately a poke hero. So those guys work okay together. Em and Both, as what I'm hearing, is play Ride? No. That is not what you're hearing. That is not what I recommend right now. You can do it, but you're choosing to walk uphill in the sand when there's broken glass scattered in the sand and you're in your bare feet. Like, it is not what you want to do. Erisa will be a throw if the community patch for her goes to Overwatch 2. Absolutely. 100% agree if the community patch... Well, hold on. That's not true. I was thinking, oh, you mean the community patch? Got it. If the community patch happened where she just lost her shield, yes, that is true. If we were talking about the patch in right now where like her Fortify gives everyone a speed buff, no, she looks like one of the better designed tanks in the current joke experimental creator patch that's going on. But yes, Erisa simply will not work if she, were just like she is, but didn't have a shield, for example. That's not a design of her that works, but ultimately, this hero, for example, is likely to not have a huge redesign. He's probably playable. So this might be one that you want to learn. Erisa will probably have a fairly large redesign. Sigma will probably have a slightly lesser redesign. So there's going to be some level of redesign, but poke is king right now. On ladder, at least. Ladder is where you're going to be playing. Still a good hero. And Erisa is great, too, because there's very few people playing with her. You're not going to get a lot of competition for that Erisa spot, and she works better than the Sigma Hog or the Sigma Zarya or the Hog Zarya that you might otherwise get on your team if you weren't there in that Erisa spot, so you sort of create more of a difference for your team. You'd love to see less Hog, which would be a reason to get more Erisa in there. What do you think about the win rate stats on Overbuff? Not terribly useful because there's sample selection bias just based on private profiles. So not the most useful thing in the world, but it's something. It's the best data we get a lot of the time. They'll just make him a DPS Roadhog? Maybe. I kind of doubt it, though. Banana Split says, just play Erisa on every map and then embrace the inability to get half of them. The inability to play half of them. I mean, she has some places she struggles. There's definitely some places where the maps are a little trickier for Erisa, but it's, you know, you look at those and go, hey, there's places where Reinhardt's better as opposed to worse. You know, you go, hey, I would rather be on Reinhardt on Night Market than on Erisa, for example. Yeah, that is a thing. I would also rather be on Erisa on Havana than on Reinhardt. That's also a thing. Yeah, I got what you meant, Blah. Erisa is a high ground artillery off tank. Sure, why not? Why not? Yes, Erisa does just fine. You looking at, you know, every double off tank combination plays like they're a poke tank combination. I will say that Erisa pairs better with Sigma and with Roadhog than Sigma and Roadhog do with each other. That has a lot to do with, hey, we look at Sigma is probably the most consistent in his output. Hog is the most spiky in his output. Erisa has a little bit of spikiness to her, so it was like, hey, up here, then down here, then up here, this sort of thing. And she works better with both of them because she has spikiness that she can match with Hog, or she has, you know, more consistency than the Hog, which makes her pair better with Sigma. But hey, we'll deal. But temporal, Erisa is a high ground artillery tank. She has a better time dealing with enemies at half health than at full health. Oh, like everybody. Everybody has an easier time dealing with enemies at half health than full health. But you know that. You know that. For those of you that don't know, Blah is trolling a bit from a line from a Your Overwatch video that we reviewed that was their Erisa guide. You can check out our review of their Erisa guide on this channel. It was a lot of fun. But I think that's going to go ahead and do it. So I will see you guys in the next one. And I did link the DPS version of this one as well if you want to check that out in the description as well.